Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go over all of the books I read in February. This month I read a total of 11 books with an average page count of 400 pages and 4,392 pages total read. I mentioned in my other video that I do not count comic and manga towards my page count, but I do count it when I am doing basically my breakdown of what format I read in. So this month was a big comic and manga month. So I read 48% were comic and manga, 24% of the books I read were physical, and 28% were audiobook. I read, of those, 9% of that was a reread, 9% was hauled in 2023, 46% was part of my owned TBR before the start of 2023, and 36% of it came from the library. Genres were not very mixed this month, so 55% of it was fantasy, 18% were mystery and thriller, and 27% was contemporary romance. And so I added something else in here, so I want to track and see if I'm actually finishing series or if I'm just starting it. So 46% of the books I read were the first book in a series, 36% were a standalone, and 18% were a sequel. Okay, so let's get into the books. So I'm going to start with the physical books I read in the order I read them, and then I'll go through the manga and graphic novels I read. Those ones won't be in any particular order. First thing I read was The Second Death of Eddie and Violet Bond by Amanda Glaze. So this is a young adult paranormal fantasy, historical, set in, I think, early 1900s. So we follow Eddie and Violet, who are twins who have different necromancy powers, sort of. So Violet can basically talk to ghosts across the veil. She can summon spirits to her in a seance, and Eddie can actually cross that veil into death and interact with spirits on the other side of the veil. So in this, they are on the run from their father and traveling as part of a seance show. And they are also trying to figure out what happened to their mother. Their mother mysteriously died a year ago, and it seems that the thing that was out to get them that killed their mother might have been returned, so they have to solve the mystery of that. I really liked this book. I really liked the characters. I liked the sister interaction. There is a little bit of a love story in here. I liked that. I really liked the magic and the stuff with the veil. Some of it didn't wrap up exactly as profoundly as I wanted. Like, some of the things didn't get explanations, and I don't think they need explanations, especially for a standalone young adult book. I think I'm just used to reading big long series that everything has a mystery and everything is solved type deal. But I really liked the characters. I really liked the story. There was definitely an undercurrent of women's rights stuff in here. So since it is the early 1900s, it talks a lot about the right to vote, as well as women just having autonomy over themselves, and how men could just send you to an insane asylum if they didn't want to deal with you anymore, that kind of thing. So I think that was really good underlying stuff, and they did it, I think, in a way that doesn't overshadow the story, but also is very much a large part of the story. So yeah, I really ended up liking this one. I just picked it up on a whim at the Barnes & Noble half price hardcover sale, and I ended up really liking it. So yeah, that's the first one. Second book on the list is The Grimrose Girls by Laura Pohl. So this is a dark academia young adult fantasy, and it follows 4 girls. 3 of them were roommates at Grimrose Academy, and one of them is a new girl who has moved into a recently vacated spot in these girls' rooms. We follow, let's see here, it's been a while since I read their names. Ella, Yuki, and Rory are the original 3, and Nani is the new person. So Ella, Yuki, and Rory recently lost their friend. She drowned, and they are kind of trying to investigate the basically circumstances around her death, because everyone thinks it was an accident, but the girls don't think that their friend would have gone down to the lake by themselves, since they knew she couldn't swim. And Nani is looking for her dad, who left her at a young age and then mysteriously contacted her and sent her a letter saying she has a full tuition to Grimrose Academy. She thought she was going to be meeting up with him, but she has not. So this was kind of a fun book. So it has a fairy tale retelling underlying it, which I did not know that it was going to have. So each of the girls, as well as other girls at the school, represent a different fairy tale. So one of the girls has a stepmother in a place of power, and she's described as, pale skinned, dark haired, red lipped. It's obviously, Snow White. And then the girl who drowned, very much her story is similar to Ariel's, but it is the original tales with the unhappy endings. There's Goldilocks, there's Aurora. I don't remember some of the other ones, but I really liked that element to it. And it was very strange because as the reader, we could tell that these girls represented these stories, but then the girls become aware of it, which kind of added another depth to the story, which I really liked. There is good LGBTQ plus representation in there. We do have an asexual character. We have a bisexual character, a lesbian, that kind of a thing. So that was kind of a fun inclusion as well. But yeah, I'm excited to read the second one. It wrapped up one of the mysteries, but then there was kind of a bigger mystery revealed at the end. So I think this is a duology, so I'm excited to read the second one there. Next book I read is These Witches Won't Burn by Isabel Sterling. So this is a young adult contemporary fantasy. So we are in Salem, Massachusetts, and we follow our main character, whose name escapes me, Hannah. So here's the thing. I'm just actually not even gonna say that. So Hannah is part of an elemental witch coven. So there are 3 types of witches in this world. There are elementals, casters, and blood witches. So elementals, as you would guess, control the elements, so fire, water, earth, air. Casters are like what you think of when you think of like potion witches, so they create different potions, stuff like that. And then blood witches have power over blood, so they can both make their own bodies like more like, what is the word I'm looking for? Agile, I guess, maybe. Balance, stuff like that. But they can also, if they have your blood, kind of control you. So they also have healing abilities. That is one thing. So Hannah and her girlfriend, during the summer before this book happens, had a bad run-in with a blood witch. And so Hannah thinks when certain symbols are found and a blood sacrifice is found at a bonfire, Hannah thinks that the blood witch has followed them to Salem. They can't find any evidence to prove to the adults without telling them about the blood witch, because it was against coven rules and they might be stripped of their magic if they tell them about the blood witch. They can't find any evidence that there is a blood witch, and they don't know why Hannah is so fixated on this concept. As we go further, we run into blood witches, we run into witch hunters, stuff like that. I really liked this book. I thought it was really good. I liked the relationship with Hannah and her best friend, as well as Hannah and kind of getting through a bad breakup, moving on, that kind of stuff. I loved her and her parents' relationship. Definitely check trigger warnings on this. There are a couple of things specifically at the end is what I thought of, but I'm sure there's other ones in here that took a little bit of a dark twist I did not expect. But yeah, I thought this was really fun. It was kind of like not a murder mystery, but like a mystery trying to figure out who's going, who's the bad guy, what's going on, that kind of thing. Who can you trust? So yeah, I thought it was really good. I liked the characters, and I really liked the world that they built within our own world. So yeah. Next book I read, I got from the library, and it is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a contemporary romance, and oh my God, I think this might be my favorite book of the month. I loved this romance. So we follow Chloe, who has, oh God, what is it, fibromyalgia maybe? She has chronic pain, I know that. And she has been kind of living her life on the safe side, and then one day, I believe she's getting coffee, and a car runs up onto the sidewalk and almost kills her. So at that point, she decides she needs to get a life. She saw her life flash before her eyes, and she was not happy with it. So she creates a list, and through a series of circumstances, she basically teams up with her building's manager. I forget what they're called, but her apartment building's manager, who at the beginning they hate each other, and then a series of circumstances makes them team up to help her accomplish this list. So things like ride on the back of a motorcycle, have sex with a stranger, move into her own place. That is the first thing she does on a list, stuff like that. So I really liked this book, especially because, so the building manager's name is Red, and you get perspectives from Red and Chloe. And I just feel like they're two very well developed characters on their own, which made their story together just so much more compelling. And both of them dealing with like shit, you know what I mean? It's not like there's some like past trauma that both of them have to work through to make this relationship work. And I really liked that because I feel like in a lot of the contemporary romances I've read, even when you're dual perspective, it's a lot of the female has stuff going on, is a main character, has her own life, and then the male, while you get his perspective so you can see how he feels about the main character, it just feels like his whole life revolves around his love interest. And I don't feel like we all the time get a really fleshed out character there. Whereas I feel like instead of Chloe being the main character, I feel like Chloe and Red are the main character, and I really liked that part about it. But absolutely adore this book. Talia Hibbert, I'm gonna have to check out so much more about Talia Hibbert. Because yeah, this is up there and probably my top 5 contemporary romances ever. It was so good. Next book on the list is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. So this is a young adult contemporary fantasy again. It follows our main character, Bree, and Bree is a 16-year-old who has been recently accepted to a early college program at UNC. So she basically gets to go take courses on the UNC campus for 2 years, live there, that kind of a thing. About 2 or 3 weeks before Bree is supposed to go, her mother does pass away in a car accident. And then once she gets to school, she is attending a like party the first night, and she happens upon these 2 kids fighting demons that nobody else seems to be able to see except her. So through a series of circumstances, she gets drawn into this secret society because there is some question on whether her mother's death was related to this secret society or whether it was just an accident. The Secret Society is a group of people who are descended from King Arthur and his knights. These are called Scions, and they have the ability to basically inherit their knights' powers to help fight these demons that cross over. And each Scion can have something called a squire, which is bonded to them, which is a person not of the bloodline who inherits the powers as well because they are bonded to that Scion. So Bree enrolls in this competition to become someone's squire so that she can investigate the mysterious circumstances around her mother's death. This book is excellent. It's so good. I would say it's my favorite book of the month, except it was a reread, and I feel like I can't count that as a favorite book since it is a reread and I knew I was gonna love it. So it is so good. Bree is an excellent main character. I love the world building. I love the hard topics in this. Like I said, she lost her mom, so it deals a lot with grief. It definitely talks a lot about the systemic racism that is present in all of our universities and stuff like that. So it definitely has hard-hitting topics. But yeah, it's so good. I love these characters. Will is my favorite and will forever be my favorite. And the magic is really cool. The history, the story, the mystery. Just read Legendborn if you haven't. It's so good. So good. Next book on the list is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. So this is another contemporary fantasy, but it is not YA this time. So we follow main character, Emery. Every single one is going to start with me looking up the main character's name. Emery lives in a small town on an island off the coast of Washington. I believe it might be Oregon, some sort of northeast island. So when Emery was 18, her best friend was murdered, and her boyfriend at the time was accused of that murder. They could never find any evidence, but basically he left town with no word after being accused and then couldn't find evidence. Well, now August, I think his name is. August, look at me remembering names. August is coming back to town to bury his mother, and a bunch of things come up regarding her best friend's death again, because this is the first time he's set back, I think, in 20 years, maybe 10, not sure on that one. So this is a mystery as Emery and August try to figure out what happened to Lily all those years ago. It is a romance as all those unresolved feelings are brought back to the surface and stuff like that. I really liked this one. So this one, I don't know if anyone's watched the show Veronica Mars, but this gives hardcore Veronica Mars to me. I think it's because it is like these 4 best friends, 2 girls, 2 boys. The best friend is mysteriously murdered. One of the people is under scrutiny, all that kind of stuff. So this very much gives Veronica Mars vibes to me. And I think that's part of the reason I loved it so much, which I think made the book probably better for me than it might be otherwise. But I thought it was really good. I liked the mystery. It was the only problem I had with the book was how they handled the magic. So there's definitely magic in this book. There are definitely witches. The main character is one, and they talk about how she brews potions, does this, how it's all real, but mainlanders basically don't believe in magic, so they'll never see it. So usually I feel like in contemporary fantasies, when there's magic, they're very much like, oh my gosh, we have to hide these magic from all the muggles. We have to, you know, make sure that no one finds this out or they're going to burn us at the stake or whatever that. And they didn't have that element in here, which actually I really liked because that's one of my least favorite things in books when they're like, oh my God, the world's going to react poorly, blah, blah, blah. We have to hide our magic. And that's like a huge plot point. So that wasn't that in this. So I did like that part. But so there's only one police officer on this island, and he's obviously the one who did the investigation in the first place, but he is a local. He knows about magic, he believes in magic, he's talked to people about magic, so you are aware that he knows, and he never once takes magic into account in the murder, which is just confusing to me. Like, they bring in the Seattle police, which I get that they wouldn't, you know, attribute it to murder and they're trying to find things, but I think there's definitely a magical element to this murder the whole time. Like, from the beginning I thought that, and this police officer never once takes into account that it might be a magic related murder, which was weird to me because it was, yeah, it was like kind of the dual thing of like, everyone at the island knows about the magic. Humans, everyone's human. Normal people don't know about the magic, so it couldn't be related, but I don't know. That was the only thing. And that was probably just a weird sticking point for me. But overall, yeah, I really liked this book. I thought it was really fun. And it kind of gave the, like, I don't even know what vibes it is. Ever since I read this, I've been trying to read more and more books. I get like chasing the vibes from this, which was like small town murder mystery with a magical element. But yeah, so yeah, I thought that was good. 4 more books on the list. So the next book I read was This Coven Won't Break by Isabel Sterling. So this is the second book in the These Witches Won't Burn duology. So we again are following Hannah, and we are basically dealing with the fallout of the first book. So it's going to be really hard to talk about this one. I probably should have just like talked about them together. But it is basically, there is a death at the end of the first book and a betrayal at the end of the first book. And this book basically focuses on those 2 things and how our main character deals with it. And basically the bigger consequences of what that betrayal entailed. So that's all I'll say on this, but I really liked the conclusion. I like how it wrapped up. I like how they didn't just have Hannah be okay with everything that happened, and how they didn't have her just be not okay with everything that happened, which is kind of confusing the way I say it, but it was very much, you could see that she was healing and she was human and that all her feelings didn't necessarily make sense, but it also implied that she is working on it and that in the future things are going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, I hate when books are like, these huge traumas happen to these characters and then it's just happily ever after. So I liked how this book concluded. I feel like they gave us a happily ever after, but they also didn't make Hannah just okay with everything that happened, and I really liked that. The only other problem I had with this book is one of the characters has problems with her magic, and it's this big plot point the entire book that her magic is not the same as it was in the first book because of something that happened in the first book, and it's a huge problem. It causes, you know, lots of issues the entire time, and by the end of the book, oh, I don't want to spoil that either. Either way, I don't like how that was resolved. I think that they didn't explain enough what was going on. I didn't like how that wrapped up. But I did really like the book. I did really like the characters. I like how they dealt with Hannah's grief over that death at the very end. I like the relationship not just with her girlfriend, but her ex-girlfriend and her best friend, and just kind of that friendship element of it. And yeah, so I thought this was really good. I think it was a good ending to the duology. I like how they wrapped everything up. Yeah, and I really like these books. I think they're fun and like a good, fun, witchy tale without being, you know, a rom-com or something like that. So yeah, I liked these. Next book is Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. So this is a thriller, and we follow our main character, Paris. Paris is married to a very famous, very rich comedian who is quite a bit older than her. So at the beginning of the book, we find Paris being arrested because the comedian's assistant walked in on her next to her dead husband in the bathtub holding what looked like the murder weapon. So Paris is obviously concerned about the murder charges, but we are pretty sure Paris didn't do the murder. The problem is this is getting a lot of publicity, and it is bringing people from her past into the future, and we find out she was around another murder that occurred many years ago, and she completely changed her life to avoid. So I picked this book up because, like I said, I was kind of chasing the same vibes as Spells for Forgetting, and this did not deliver that, which is not its book's fault. It was me looking for something that is not advertised in this. But I did like it. I guess the twist pretty much in the first 20 pages. So it was mostly just me reading to find out if that is what occurred, and basically a couple of other little plot points that might line up. But I did like the way they handled the twists and the way they handled certain things, giving you the clues and stuff like that. So I did like it. I think I never want to read it again. And I think that this is just confirming to me that thrillers aren't really my thing, that I'm really more of a murder mystery person. I got this when I was part of the Book of the Month Club, and I was wanting to try out more thrillers because I couldn't decide if I actually like them, because people lump mystery thriller together. But I think, yeah, this just confirms for me that thrillers aren't really my thing, and I don't think it's the book's fault. I think it was good. It wasn't really my cup of tea. So the second to last book that I have on the list is Take a Hint, Dani Brown. So this is the sequel. Well, it's really more of a companion novel. I don't know. Are they sequels when it's a romance trilogy? But it is the second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, and we follow Dani Brown in this one. So Dani is a woman going for her PhD. She has decided that romance is not for her. She's not good at it. Boyfriends always get mad that she works too much, this kind of stuff. So she asks her goddess for the perfect fuck buddy, basically. And the goddess delivers to her, God, what is his name? Saf? I think his name is Saf. Oh, shit. Zaf, I think. Okay, either way, he is the security guard at the building where she works. So he is a retired rugby player, and has started a charity that basically's goal is to help boys in sports settings deal with their emotions and avoid toxic masculinity and all that kind of stuff that happens a lot of times in, I feel like, sports, especially teenage boy sports and stuff like that. I think it's during a drill, basically Dani gets stuck in the elevator and Zaf rescues her and like carries her out, and then a picture goes viral of that happening, and it helps Zaf's nonprofit get off the ground, so Dani agrees to fake date him to help with his publicity type deal. This is, again, it was so good. I think I liked it slightly less than Chloe Brown, but not by much. I thought it was good. It had that same thing where both characters were fully fleshed out. I felt like they were characters in their own right, and so I could be much more invested in their love story. But yeah, I don't have much more to say. I thought it was really good. I liked the charity aspect. I love the academia aspect. academia aspect. Thought that was really good. Yeah, I don't have much more to say. It was really good. Talia Hibbert, she's so good. I'm so excited to read so much more by her. I have the third one on hold for the library, but it has not come yet. So yeah. Last book before we get into the graphic novels and manga is Token by Beverly Kendall. So this is another contemporary romance. In this, we follow Kennedy, who is a, let's see here. Okay. So Kennedy is working a 4-week temp job as a secretary after she got laid off from her marketing position. She has like a master's in marketing or something like that. She's very overqualified for this position. And then one day, one of the board members comes to her and basically is like, hey, we have this celebrity coming in who wants to start her own clothing line and is talking about doing it on our company. However, she is a woman of color and is very insistent that the company she works with be diverse. So we don't have anyone on our board. Will you come pretend to be a board member? And we will offer you like this giant sum of money. So Kennedy has a lot of student loans. She needs rent. She is being paid not very much for a job she is super overqualified for. So she does end up accepting. But when they offer her the job the next day, because they obviously need to keep her on if they're going to work with this celebrity, she turns them down and decides to start a company with her best friend that works on improving diversity in workplaces. So like basically helps companies who have a bad rap for diversity, help diversify their company and stuff like that. So then fast forward 2 years later, and she is approached by her best friend's brother, who happens to also be her ex, needing help because his company is being sued for diversity issues. And she doesn't know if it's a good idea to get involved back with him and back with, his company, which could be, not so great press for her company type deal. I really liked this book. I didn't love it as much as some of the other ones, but I definitely liked it a lot more than a lot of contemporary romances I've read. So basically, that's my way of saying it was middle of the road in a way that I enjoyed. I really like Kennedy. I didn't care for Nate that much, our main character, or main love interest. He was just kind of boring and one-dimensional. Who doesn't want a tech billionaire to fall in love with you? But I wasn't all that compelled by him. I liked the way they talked about what do you accept and what don't you accept, because Kennedy was qualified for that position they offered her. Like she easily, should have gotten the job when she applied several years ago. But, how things work, she was not offered the position until the diversity, until the celebrity basically forced their hand. So it's kind of a balance of what do you accept from a job, knowing that you're qualified and you deserve it, but also knowing they're giving it to you for the wrong reason. What do you accept? What don't you accept? Where do you draw the line? That kind of thing. I thought that was really interesting. I am obviously very white, so I don't face nearly the discrimination that a lot of people do, especially Black women. But as a woman in an engineering position, I understand being that token woman type deal. Like when I got hired, there was 50 male engineers and 3 women, and I think I was partially hired because I was a woman. So I do get that. Again, not nearly to the extent of some people, and I really, can't claim that at all. But I liked how this book handled that. Long story short. So yeah, I thought it was good. I liked the relationship between the character and her best friend. I liked her company. Nate was fine. I didn't dislike it. The only problem I have with this book, and I don't even know, I think this is just a me thing. I don't know. They mention her virginity like a lot, which like I get in like when the characters are younger, but this woman is 30 years old and they keep talking about how like Nate was her first and he took her virginity and all this other stuff. And I get also it being intimate and that being something for them and him being like, oh, you saying it meant nothing, blah, blah, blah. But they also like throw it in the face of one of her exes who she just recently dated. Like, I don't know. It just seems like a weird thing to bring up all the time when you're 30 years old and 34 years old. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Either way, that is the books I read this month. So let's get into the graphic novels and manga. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to do these in order read like I did with the other ones. I'm just going to kind of group the series together and kind of just go in the order I have it stacked here because that's easiest. So we are going to start with One Piece. So I read volumes 11, 12, and 13 of One Piece. So One Piece is a manga that follows a young boy named Luffy who has decided that he wants to become the Pirate King, and he needs to find a treasure called One Piece. To do that, you have to sail, oh God, what is it called? The Grand Line, that's what it's called. You have to sail the Grand Line in order to get this One Piece treasure and become the Pirate King. So along the way, he picks up 4 or 5 kind of goofy companions. I like these. I don't love One Piece. I don't know if it's because I don't like manga as much as graphic novels. I feel like they should be the same, or if I specifically don't like One Piece. I found the main character Luffy kind of annoying. It's like kind of a gag in this where he's so unbothered by everything and so goofy and everything just works out for him. But I find it kind of annoying. I don't know. I do really like the side characters though. Specifically, not really like all of them. I really like all of them. I like the found family in this. I do like all of the villains are extra ridiculous because there's something called a devil's fruit, which gives you weird power. So Luffy is like rubbery, I guess. So basically he can, like, things bounce off him or whatever, and that's his power. But it gives like other people, like one of the villains is a clown and stuff like that, or shark people. So I think that's fun. In these novels, we finally make it to the Grand Line, so that was kind of interesting to see. But yeah, so again, good. And I'm reading this because my friend recommended it to me, and everyone in the mom loves One Piece. But yeah, it's okay. Next thing on the list is something I love. So I read volumes 2 and 3 of Once and Future. So this is following our main character Duncan and his sassy grandmother, and they are monster hunters. So in the first one, Duncan finds out stories are real and that his grandmother has been a monster hunter her entire life, and he kind of gets swept into it, and his grandma's all like, you know, oh, stop being, you know, dramatic, it's fine, we'll just go kill this, you know, giant thing. And what they are trying to do in this is to stop the resurrection of King Arthur, because basically his resurrection would cause basically the end of the world. So that's the other thing, is King Arthur is like super creepy and zombie like the whole time, but it's basically the story of those two trying to stop King Arthur and Merlin, and trying to fight other stories along the way, because as a fighting tactic, and just the more you know about a story, the more it comes to life. There are other stories interacting. I think there's Beowulf and all of his villains and stuff like that. So I think it's really interesting to see all the different stories and how they're interpreted, and how it affects our real life, and basically how we interpret things affects the story and how it presents itself in this book. I love the grandmother. She is so great. I like Duncan. I think that he is adorable and naive, and a perfect foil for his grandma. But yeah, I love these. I have, like I said, I read 2 and 3, so there's 4 and 5 left, and then I'm done, but oh, they're so good. And then again, another thing I love. So I read volume 1 and volume 2 of 5 Ghosts. So in this story, we are following Dorian Gray, who has basically, during an accident, got 5 pieces of something called a dreamstone embedded in his chest. And these 5 pieces allow 5 ghosts to basically take over his body. So I think they're literary ghosts. So it's Sherlock Holmes, Merlin, Robin Hood, Dracula, and some sort of samurai character that I don't know. But basically, during that accident, his sister also had her, what looks like a soul to me, I don't really know what it was, it doesn't really explain, sucked away. So now he is on a quest to get his sister back, along with her sister's fiance. And I loved these. These are like, let's see here, how did I describe them? They're like Indiana Jones with ghosts. So he is also a treasure hunter. That is part of how the accident happened. So he is trying to hunt down different artifacts that will help him get his sister back. And he has run into other people who are in possession of Dreamstone, and so have different literary ghosts attached to them. So one of them was like a Iago, which I don't remember what he's from, but I know he's a bad guy. Sinbad was one of them, stuff like that. So I love these. They're so good. I just found out that there is not a 4th volume yet, so that's a little sad, but I've read the first 2 now, and they're so good. I definitely recommend. Next thing, hi miss, what you doing? Is Isola. So this is following a cursed queen and her bodyguard. So the queen has been cursed into the form of a tiger, and her bodyguard is trying to get her to the mythical island of Isola because they think that you can break the curse there. Along the way, they are fighting different people trying to poach the tiger, trying to, if they found out that it is queen, trying to make a political move, that kind of stuff. I liked this. I didn't love it. I love the art. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I liked the world and the story. There was a couple things that were confusing with some dream scenes that I didn't understand, and I definitely want to continue. But it wasn't like my favorite of all time like these two. So I definitely thought it was interesting, and I'm definitely excited to see more world building after this, as well as how they resolve the issues with the queen. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Oh my goodness. Next thing I read is Paper Girls. So this follows 4 teenagers who have a paper route in the 1980s. And while they are doing their route on the evening of Halloween, or I guess the morning of November 1st, the day after Halloween, basically they find out that everyone has disappeared, including their parents. And then they run into a bunch of strange people who are not speaking their language, and they find a mysterious object that seems like some sort of spaceship. This one I didn't love as much. I didn't really care for the girls. I didn't like them at all. The aliens weren't that cool. There was some pterodactyl parts, which were cool. But overall, it just wasn't my cup of tea. It was okay. I think the story might get more interesting in the next one because of what happened at the very end. So I might check out the next one for that reason. But mostly I would say it's pretty forgettable, and I didn't love it. Okay, last thing on the list. So I read The Wicked and the Divine. So volume 1. This follows, it's how many years? There's 12 gods. So every 90 years, every 90 years, 12 gods return to Earth. They are worshipped, they party, they hang out, and then 2 years later, they're all dead. It is a cycle that happens every 90 years, no matter what, and it has just occurred again. In this iteration, these 12 gods are resurrected as like pop stars or singing stars. Not all of them are pop, because if you think about it, it makes sense because like famous people like that are worshipped. Religion's obviously a thing, but established religions are. It's not like back in the day when you believed in gods and all that kind of stuff on a regular basis. So pop stars is a good way of being worshipped without all of that stuff. So we follow one young girl. She's a teenager who's basically been bopping around these stories, and she gets caught up with Lucifer, who is one of the gods. And Lucifer is being accused of killing someone with their powers. I actually don't know what gender Lucifer is. And this girl is basically trying to prove that they are innocent. We meet several of the other gods, which are not like your typical like Greek gods or stuff like that. There's things like Lucifer. I think Bast is maybe a character. I can't even remember the other ones. But it was really interesting to see all the different gods. and how they present. I thought that I wasn't loving it, or not that I wasn't loving it because I do like the story, but that I wasn't really attached to the characters. And then one of the characters dies, and I realized that I was a lot more invested in the story than I thought I was. So yeah, I think the concept is interesting. I like the different gods they're using. I think it's fun that it's not, you know, the ones you always see in media. And I like the idea of the, I don't even know what I'm going to say. The idea of seeing the different interactions they have in the future. I don't know that I'm going to love it though, because I'm all about a happy ending. And if they are all dead at the end, I'm not going to be happy. So we'll see. I might get this from the library. Yeah. Well, that is my wrap up. Thank you so much for watching it. If you've made it this far, please like the video if you are so inclined. Let me know, have you read any of these books? Do you have any suggestions of good books that you read this month, that kind of a thing? Yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.